to Times Group and GSA for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts. This film was shot in the rural areas of Maharashtra, but it could well be in Bangalore now, and the women, instead of the women, it could be the tankers who have to go further and further to get water. So, this time, I've been given roughly 10 minutes. I will not bore you with PPT, but I thought I'll use some imageries to tell the story of WASH in the era of climate change. So I think the context has very well been set by, I think, the panel before me. I think Ms. Vivaa Dhawan and Ms. Anita Sham primarily gave a very good context of why we should be bothered about water. So roughly 1 in 3 people still don't have access to clean drinking water. For sanitation globally, the picture is even worse. Almost half the people don't have access to good sanitation facility. Of course, in India, we are doing much better with Jal Jeevan Mission and Swachh Bharat missions. And in the climate change, I mean, to make it simpler to understand, the implications of that is either too much water, which is a flood situation that we see every year, or too little water results in droughts, or it's polluted water. And in terms of imagery from our own area, so while researching for this work, so this is Kerala last year in July, that is the Mandi landslides and floods, that is Uttarakhand landslides again in July, and this is our very own Yamuna in Delhi. So we are living it actually, and it is not, we are all experiencing it, and possibly now right up to June we'll be talking about the drought, the heat waves, and it is all part of the climate change that is happening around us. And I was surprised to see that last year in Europe, 60,000 people died of heat wave. I mean, never have I imagined that so many people in the northern nation could be affected. In California, the temperature reached 51 degrees Celsius, unprecedented. This is the fires that were raging out in La Palma in Spain, and in South Korea, in Asia, closer home, there was again. And in the articles, the common running thread is climate change, right? So essentially, I mean, if there's a solace, I don't know if we can call it that, but we are not really alone. What we are experiencing here is happening globally, and we need to take notice. And also what we found is that this has been validated, that the science behind what the causality of climate change, and the problem is the worst is not yet over. So there is forecasting that in the times to come, it will get worse. People, possibly the most vulnerable, will be much more affected. And we will see in Himalayan condition, the landslide, people will actually start dying. Interestingly, the rise in temperature due to climate change, it has affected crop production as well, because this news item reports that in Haryana and Punjab, which is the wheat bowl of the country, there was lowest production in 22-23 season, attributed to minor rise in temperature in the harvest time. And there are new terms that are coming out. We have heard of flash floods, right? So I had never heard of anything like flash droughts. It comes very quickly, destroys the crop and go away. So essentially, it creates a lot of insecurity in terms of food production, water insecurity. It has got impacts on health, and also affects the economy at large, because there's a large power plant in Sikkim that got washed away in last July. So amidst all this, this is the vision that we have as far as WASH is concerned, a world where every person has got access to reliable and safe water and sanitation services, really basic. We are not asking for the moon here. And our mission is to promote the development of quality services. So we see WASH from the lens of a service, not a project, much like what the Jal Jeevan Mission and Swachh Bharat Mission is trying to do, that it should last beyond the project also. It doesn't. It's a recurring need, and we have to cater for that. And those are sustained by communities, businesses, and government. So literally, the Samaj, Sarkar, and Bazaar have to come together to solve for the problems that we face in WASH. Globally, we work in around 9 countries, 4 in Africa, 4 in Latin America, 1 only in Asia. So we are not very big, but we have ambitions that are pretty big. And What we now realize, based on what Kathleen had also mentioned earlier, that we are looking at resilient wash services that should be at the heart of climate action. So I'll take 2 minutes. So this is the more, what's the solution? We are seeing that we are experiencing it, and it's not different in different parts of the world. Our focus has so far been at the infrastructure. So building, bringing in a technology, bringing in the engineering solution is relatively easy. But making them climate resilient, like in Sundarbans where we work, there are cyclones every alternate year. What we build gets destroyed every second year. So the infrastructure itself needs to be much more resiliently built in climate change context. And the effort should be to move towards more and more nature-based solution. Services, in terms of wash, those who build the toilets, those who empty the tanks, because it is so contextual, needs to be very adaptive. So what happens in Sundarban is very different in what we experience in Birbhum. Both are in the same state of Bengal. So how do you create institutions that can respond to the specific problem that the communities are facing in those areas? And possibly it should result in a climate resilient master planning and also measurement at a unit of change of, let's say, a district, where based on the context of that particular area, it should feed into what needs to be done as far as water and sanitation is concerned. And because much of the dependence is there on groundwater, I don't know if Anita Sham is there, groundwater being a common pool resource, it is a fugitive resource, we call it. It needs to be managed decentralized manner. 90% of the rural drinking water supply comes from groundwater resource, and there has to be a local management. Even the NACWIM plan that she mentioned, the vision is to empower the local communities to understand the science behind groundwater and see if they can manage it better. And the most important thing is the freshwater ecosystem, because our focus is where the water comes out, a tap, a hand pump, a well, but we are not really trying to understand where the water in the well comes from. And for that, we need to look at the ecosystem as a whole, shift our focus from the source to the resource, and protect the forests, protect the wetlands which feed the sources that drinking water depends on. So this is basically a resilience framework based on risk management that has been worked on based on our experience and also of many others. And this is what we are trying to deploy on the ground while we are trying to work in India. So we essentially do experimentation by implementing projects directly on the ground, and which is for solution building. And whatever solutions we find or some other people discover, the scale of the problem is so big, we need to design for scale, and for that we collaborate actively with the government and try to provide technical assistance to the state and the district administration to take it to population scale. So we've taken upon ourselves to enable access to wash services to 100 million people by 2030, because we believe that the pace at which we have been working is not commensurate with the scale of the problem. And when we say 100 million, it's not to say that we as individual organization will solve this problem, but we need to collaborate, come together and solve for this together if we are to achieve the SDG goals by 2030. So accordingly, this is what we've been doing. So the source was the focus so far. So be it a hand pump or this pipe water system in Digambarpur, which got a President's Award, or that is a raised platform. It's a flood-prone area in Sundarban. So when the flooding happens, the women still need to access the hand pump, and if it gets submerged, then it gets contaminated and it's difficult to get drinking water. So this is the infrastructure part, but gradually we are trying to move away from it. In public institutions like schools, and we do roof rainwater harvesting, there's water points, community stand ports. Much of what is being done under Jal Jeevan Mission now, and at a much, much bigger scale. So that's where we are trying to see if we can roll up our expertise and support the government in trying to make that public investment work better for everyone. And this is also something that we believe, building a toilet is easy, right? But getting people to use a toilet is very difficult. Building pipes at home is easy, but it gets wastage. And that is what Ms. Dhawan was also talking about. And this is the tough nut to crack. It's not just, I mean, we've got experience in working with very localized communities, and we do all these street plays involving the community to get sensitized. But whatever works at 20 village or a 200 village level, now we have to design for it to work at 2,000 villages in one district, let's say, and 6 lakh villages eventually across the country. So how do you scale behavior change, whether it's in urban area or in rural area? That remains a big challenge. And this is the shift away from infrastructure to look at the ecosystem as a whole. So in any place that we work in, we look at water as a hydrological unit and try to work as per that. Sanitation, this is the circular economy experiment that we are trying. So right now, it's at the containment stage. We are trying to see how the pit emptying can be done in a much safer way, treated, and if the water, the wastewater can be recovered from there and reused. And these are the examples. I mean, this is a community toilet. This is a very decentralized waste fecal sludge management plant. And those are the enterprises, the micro-entrepreneurs, because service needs to be provided to the communities. And for that, the ecosystem needs to be developed. I think I'm running out of time, but I'd set my timer to 12 minutes, and it's still not gone. But I'll end with this. So in terms of a call to action, we think there's a much more investment that needs to come into climate resilient wash. And we need to embed this water security in every climate action plan that gets made, whether it's at the district level or at the state level. We can't do it alone. We need to come together with academia, with private sector, with government. Only then I think we'll be able to solve the scale of the problem. And this service ecosystem, this is still weak because our investment is like an inverse pyramid. So it's highest at the top level, but at the village level, the service providers, who are they, what is their motivation, who pays them, the skills, the technology that is needed, it dwindles as we go down to the village level. So this pyramid needs to be inverted if we need to solve this problem at scale. Thank you so much. Patient listening. Sorry.